G'day guys and gal, I get this question a lot. Major Kill, is Warhammer Fantasy connected to 40k? Does 40k take 40,000 years after Fantasy? If they aren't connected, why are their gods called the same thing? It's time to silence the autists and shine some light on the truth. I've been thinking about this topic for a while, hence through a lot of research and me sadly purchasing Tinder Gold after the love of my life friend-zoned me, I have figured it all out. I've seen a few other lore YouTubers try and explain it, but while they present some base level connections and arguments for and against the theory, they fail to go deeper and really show the connection, which is why I'm way better than them. Warhammer Fantasy, 40k and yes, even Age of Sigmar are all connected, a bit subtly, and it is physically possible for someone from 40k to get to Fantasy or Age of Sigmar, how it is stupidly difficult, with Games Workshop themselves not really committing much hard evidence that they are connected still. There are a few plot holes that can be explained by the term warp spaghetti, which is just an advertiser friendly way of saying warp. Today we'll go over how the universes are connected and why the gods share the same names despite being different entities. I'll also explain how it's possible that one being could transverse between each setting, and because I am fair, I will also go over the plot holes that are present in order for the connection to be legitimate. Spoilers ahead, it seems like different Games Workshop writers have different opinions on the matter and have seemingly changed their mind multiple times if they actually want them to be connected or not. Let's get into it. Firstly, let's talk about why the gods share the same name despite being different entities. The main four Chaos gods, Khorne, Titsnich, Nurgle and Slaanesh, all represent different key aspects of emotion, especially human emotion. Khorne is war and anger, yes, but he is also bravery and honor. Titsnich is scheming and betrayal, but he is also knowledge and progress. Nurgle is nature and disease, and Slaanesh is pleasure and joy. Due to the presence of the warp in Warhammer, if there are mortals such as humans, there will be these four gods, no matter what, as they are fundamentally a part of everyone. The gods also name themselves, so the aspect of war and rage will always call itself Khorne. Hence, the Chaos gods from 40k and Fantasy are different gods, however they represent the same thing. This also explains their difference in power. The four Chaos gods and their greater demons have destroyed countless worlds like it was nothing in 40k, yet the four Chaos gods and their greater demons took thousands of years to finally defeat the Warhammer Fantasy world. That is because they only have a few million people fueling them and empowering them compared to the countless trillions in 40k, i.e. 40k warp entities are stronger. It's the same situation with the Elven gods having the same name as the Eldar gods. The elves are Eldar without their fancy technology, hence they create the same gods. Cain, Assyrian, Isha, etc. are different entities between the settings, but represent the same thing. This brings us to the Old Ones, the cosmic toads that created most life in the galaxy. The Old Ones referenced in Warhammer Fantasy are the same Old Ones from 40k. So far, these are the only beings that are the same characters between the settings. Here is why. In 40k, the Old Ones seeded much of the galaxy with life, constantly experimenting and creating. When the Necron tier got mad that the Old Ones weren't sharing the secrets to functional sunscreen with them, they teamed up with the star parasites called the Stan. They started to become more of a problem. Hence, the Old Ones got desperate and experimental. They created the Orcs as weapons of war, however it wasn't enough and they weren't done there. Remember, at this point the warp was calm and the Old Ones were its masters, hence they could travel around it easily. In order to create new weapons against the Necrons, they had to test them, hence they created a pocket universe hidden deep within the warp. This universe was extremely isolated from the 40k universe, and only they could travel between the two settings using special warp gates on each side of the planet the Old Ones had created. They seeded this planet with life, creating new beings such as the Dwarves and Lizardmen, as well as bringing in Old Ones such as humans and Eldar. They bent the warp to their will, manifesting it in this universe as magic, a variation of the classic Psyker powers from 40k. Now the official lore goes on to tell us that the Old Ones cultivated these races and taught them many things, however they never explained why they created them or where they came from. This is because the Old Ones did not want their new planet to know it was just a testing ground to create new weapons in the war against the Necrons and other threats from the warp. The Old Ones filled a world with volatile specimens and introduced it to magic simply to see what would happen and if they would gain new knowledge and warriors. We know this eventually would work out exceptionally well, as the magic would evolve and create the setting of Age of Sigmar, a setting full of gods and powerful warriors, the exact thing the Old Ones wanted to use as weapons. Where do the orcs come into this? Well, it's not hard to assume that either some of their spores were accidentally tucked away on the Old Ones' ships, or the Old Ones deliberately seeded the world with greenskins as a way to toughen up the other races. Either way, they were also brought by the Old Ones. The greenskins get their innate knowledge and strength from the Waaagh, which they were cut off from due to being in the new Pocket Universe. Hence, they had to create their own new Waaagh energy from scratch, explaining why they were weaker and less intelligent than their 40k counterparts. The Slann are also present in 40k, so it's likely the Old Ones recreated some new Slann in Warhammer Fantasy due to them being proven to be useful servants. As we know, the Old Ones mysteriously disappeared, and the polar warp gates on the fantasy world collapsed without explanation. Within Fantasy, 40k actually explains why this happened quite well. The war against the Necrons had created a shitload of negative emotion, which had slowly turned the warp from a fun cuddly place into a little angry ADHD emo kid. The realms of chaos were created, and the Old Ones either fled or were killed by the new evil warp entities, hence why they vanished from Fantasy as well. The collapsed warp gates were either a result of the warp destabilizing and damaging the gates, or a deliberate sacrifice by the Old Ones to ensure that nothing outside the Pocket Universe could enter into the world. Mystery solved there in terms of origins of the Warhammer Fantasy Universe and why it was created. There are also some clues scattered around during the end times, which show even more connection between the two settings. Firstly, whilst the Skaven are single-handedly raping the entire planet, they uncover an ancient artifact of the Old Ones. They activate it and they hear an alien voice that sounds elvish play from it, so they panic and destroy it. This was clearly the voice of an Eldar transmitting through a very powerful device created by the Old Ones, likely some kind of ancient cross-warp communication the Old Ones once used. Another hint is during the trip to the Realms of Chaos, Araloth stumbles upon a very large silver knight who was quite a menace to Chaos and could shoot blue fire from his hands. This sounds very much like Kaldor Drago, a Grey Knight from 40k. The issue with this is that, as we've established, the realms from 40k are separate from the realms of chaos in Warhammer Fantasy. However, with Kaldor Drago getting thrown around the warp like a choir boy in a priest's office, we can explain his cameo in Warhammer Fantasy with Warp Spaghetti. Now on to Sigmar, an exceptionally strong, intelligent, charismatic leader who seemingly popped out of nowhere and united his people. Seems very much like one of the lost Primarchs from 40k, which could have been Games Workshop's original plan with him. However, it has been hard confirmed that Sigmar was born in the fantasy world and is not a Primarch, hence that theory is dead and adds no weight to our current discussion. Now, with this theory of the settings being connected, you can just say that they used to be connected, but it was reconned out of existence by the writers, and that nods to Warhammer 40k are just Easter eggs. But that would make you a boring cunt, so let's not do that. Now, love it or hate it, Age of Sigmar has become a very distinct juggernaut that seemingly shares no connection to Warhammer 40k. However, as it is directly connected to Warhammer Fantasy, it is also by extension connected to Warhammer 40k. As we said before, the creation of godlike beings populating Warhammer Fantasy and the increased power of the warp via the realms and winds of magic was the Old Ones' main goal, to create legendary weapons. They just aren't around to use them. Now you might be, how does one transverse between the settings? While I can't say 100% for sure, it's likely a character would have to achieve a level of understanding of the warp that would even surpass the Old Ones. Either that or due to an insane level of warp spaghetti. Either way, it's very unlikely we'll see any crossover in the near future. Also, for time frames, you might be like, bruh, the Old Ones existed 65 million years ago, surely Warhammer Fantasy is not 65 million years before 40k. And it's not. Time moves differently in the warp, so I can imagine it moving even more differently when you're separated by a pocket universe. And that does us for today, guys. I wanted to make this video for a while now, but just never really got around to it, so I'm glad it's here. If you guys have any other details to add, or if you disagree with this theory, then let me know in the comments below. I read all comments, despite how many of them I get these days. If you want to support the channel further and get access to a boatload of custom Warhammer hentai, then consider jumping on my Patreon. Only $1 gives you access to everything. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.